The radio still works. That is what I remember. The damn radio still works. My partner is dying 3 feet away from me. Blood everywhere. And the radio crackles like nothing happened. Like the world has not just ended. I am 68 years old now. Retired highway patrol. 26 years on the job. And I have told this story exactly twice. Once to the department shrink. Once to my wife. Both times I left out the worst parts. Not tonight. Tonight you get everything. It was 1994. October. A Tuesday. I remember because my wife had asked me to pick up milk on the way home. Funny how the small things stick. The big things, they blur. But the milk, the brand she wanted, that I remember. Danny Reeves was my partner. 15 years we rode together. 15 years. That is longer than most marriages. Longer than some people stay in the same house. We knew each other's breathing patterns. Knew when the other was hungry, tired, scared. He had 3 kids. Sarah was the oldest, 12. Then the twins, Michael and Marcus, 7 years old. His wife's name was Linda. Sweet woman. Made the best lemon bars you ever tasted. Brought them to every department picnic. I am telling you this because you need to understand. Danny was not just a name on a report. He was a man, a father, a husband, a friend. Back then, highway patrol was different. No cell phones in your pocket, no dash cams recording everything, no GPS telling you where to go. You had a map, a radio, and your instincts. The cruiser we drove was a 1993 Ford Crown Victoria, white with the gold stripe. She had about 87,000 miles on her. The air conditioning rattled something awful, but she was ours. Gas was about $1.10 a gallon that year. I remember because Danny always complained about filling up, said the department should pay for it. I told him to stop whining. God, the things you say to people, the things you waste your last words on. It was around 4:30 in the afternoon. Sun was getting low. That golden hour the photographers talk about. We were on Route 17. Long stretch of nothing between Bakersville and the county line. Farmland on both sides. Quiet, too quiet sometimes. The car came up behind us doing about 85 in a 60 zone. Blue Chevy pickup, rusted around the wheel wells. Danny was driving that day. He looked at me. I nodded. Routine. That was the word in my head. Routine. We lit him up. Cherries and berries, Danny used to call the lights. The truck pulled over nice and easy. No hesitation. No trying to run. That should have been my first clue. Speeders always hesitate. They always think about running, even for a second. This guy, nothing. Smooth as butter. I ran the plates on the radio. Dispatch came back. 1987 Chevrolet. Registered to a Harold Munson out of Chester County. No warrants. No flags. Clean. Danny got out first. He always did. Said his legs were longer. Needed to stretch. I gave him 30 seconds. Then I opened my door. Stepped out onto the gravel shoulder. The sun was in my eyes. I remember squinting. Remember the dust from the shoulder floating in the light like tiny diamonds. Then everything happened at once. The driver's door of the truck opened. A man stepped out. Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Baseball cap pulled low. He had his hands up. That was good. Hands up meant cooperation. But his eyes, I will never forget his eyes. They were not scared, not nervous. They were calculating, like he was measuring distances, counting seconds. Danny was about 10 feet from him. I was near the hood of our cruiser, maybe 20 feet total from the truck. The man smiled, and then his right hand moved. 3 seconds, that is all it took. People ask me what happened. They want details. They want a blow-by-blow. But 3 seconds is not enough time for details. 3 seconds is instinct, muscle memory, survival. His hand went to his waistband. I saw the metal. Heard Danny yell something. Could have been gun. Could have been my name. I do not know. The first shot hit Danny in the chest. The second shot went wide, shattered the cruiser's spotlight. I had my .38 out by then. Fired twice. Both hit. The man went down. But so did Danny. You want to know what dying sounds like? It sounds like air escaping from a tire. A slow hiss. A wheeze. Danny was on his back in the gravel. His uniform was turning dark, spreading from the center of his chest like oil in water. I was on my knees beside him, pressing my hands against the wound, screaming into the radio for backup, for an ambulance, for anyone. The radio crackled back. Dispatch asking for my location, for details, for things I could not think about because my partner was drowning in his own blood right in front of me. He grabbed my wrist. Danny. His grip was weak, not like him at all. Danny had hands like a carpenter, strong, calloused. He said my name, said it soft, like a question. Then he said, "Tell Linda, tell her." He never finished. His hand went slack. His eyes stayed open, looking at that October sky, that golden light. I kept pressing on his chest, kept talking to him, kept saying his name over and over. Like if I said it enough, he would answer. He did not answer. Backup arrived 11 minutes later. Felt like 11 hours. 2 state boys and a county deputy. They found me still kneeling there, covered in Danny's blood. Hands shaking so bad I could not stand up on my own. The shooter was dead too. I learned later his name was Carl Benton, 29 years old, had a warrant out of Missouri for armed robbery. He had carjacked that truck 2 days earlier. Harold Munson was found in a ditch outside Chester, shot once in the head. Carl Benton was a dead man driving. He knew if he got pulled over, it was over. So he decided to take someone with him. He chose Danny. They put me in the back of a cruiser. Standard procedure. Said they needed my weapon for evidence. Said they needed to take my statement. I nodded. I answered their questions, but I was not really there. Part of me was still on that gravel shoulder, still pressing my hands against a wound that would not stop bleeding. Here is what they do not tell you in the academy. They train you for shootings, train you for violence, train you for the moment. They do not train you for the after. They do not train you for the drive back to the station in a different cruiser because yours is a crime scene now. They do not train you for the silence, for the empty seat beside you where your partner should be. I drove back alone that night. Someone from the department was supposed to come get me, but I said no. Said I needed to do it myself. 22 miles. I counted every one. You know what I thought about during that drive? The milk. My wife wanted milk, 2%, from the store on 5th Street. She was making scalloped potatoes for dinner that night. I thought about stopping. Thought about walking into that store covered in blood, buying milk like nothing happened. I did not stop. There is a code among officers. When one of us falls, we do not let the family find out from the news. We do not let them get a phone call from a stranger. Someone who knew the fallen goes to the door, looks the wife in the eye, tells her, I volunteered. My sergeant said I did not have to. Said I had been through enough. Said someone else could do it. I told him Danny was my partner. 15 years. His wife knew my face, trusted my face. It had to be me. The Reeves house was on Maple Street, small yellow house with a chain-link fence. Danny had been meaning to paint the shutters, said they looked shabby. Linda said she liked them the way they were. I parked across the street. Sat there for maybe 10 minutes. Could have been longer. Time was not working right anymore. The living room light was on. Through the window, I could see the television flickering. The kids were probably inside, doing homework, watching cartoons, living the last few minutes of their normal life. I got out of the car. The walk to that front door was the longest walk of my life. Longer than any foot pursuit, longer than any building I ever cleared. Every step felt like moving through water. I rang the doorbell. Linda answered. She was wearing an apron, flour on her hands, probably baking something. Her face changed the moment she saw me. Not my uniform, not the badge. My eyes. She knew before I said a word. I have replayed that moment 1,000 times, tried to remember exactly what I said. But the truth is, I do not remember my words. I remember her face, the way it crumpled. Like something inside her just collapsed. I remember her falling, not fainting, just falling. Like her legs forgot how to work. I caught her. The kids came running. Sarah first, then the twins. They saw their mother in my arms, saw me in my bloody uniform, and they knew too. Children always know. I stayed 3 hours, made phone calls, answered questions, held Linda's hand while she cried herself empty. Then I went home. My wife was waiting. The potatoes were cold. She did not care about the milk. I sat at the kitchen table, and I cried for the first time since I was 12 years old. 32 years have passed since that October Tuesday. I am an old man now. Bad knee, worse back. The shakes come and go. Danny's kids are grown. Sarah is a teacher in Oregon. The twins run a construction business together. Linda passed in 2018. Heart attack. But I think her heart broke in 1994. Just took a while to stop beating. I visit Danny's grave every October 15th. Bring him a beer, the cheap kind he liked. I sit there and talk to him, tell him about the world, about his grandchildren he never met. I tell him I am sorry. People ask me if I would do it again. Put on the badge, ride the highways, knowing what I know now, and the answer is yes. Because that badge, that piece of tin, it is not about glory. It is not about power. It is about being there, standing between the darkness and the people who cannot fight it themselves. Danny knew that. He died knowing that. And I have spent 32 years trying to be worthy of riding beside him. The radio still works. Even now, when I close my eyes, I hear it, crackling, waiting. Like Danny is still out there somewhere, just waiting for me to answer. One day I will.